All right, I am going to be showing you guys how to actually master the longsword. Before we look at the different parts of this video, let's first just look at the overall mechanic and system of the longsword. Basically, what is your goal when you are playing the longsword? Landing attacks on a monster fills the spirit gauge. Using spirit blade attacks will consume the gauge, and landing a spirit round slash or focus strike will raise the gauge 1 level. When the spirit gauge turns red, it's at its maximum level, enhancing some attacks and also allowing you to perform powerful follow-up attacks. Landing a spirit round slash or a spinning crimson slash will extend the duration the gauge stays red. So basically, in dumb words, right under your sharpness, you have another gauge that looks like your sharpness, and that is going to be called your spirit gauge. You have the inside of your spirit gauge, where depending on what attack you land, it's going to give you your spirit, okay, or actually filling your spirit gauge. I call it the juice. And then you have the outside of your spirit gauge starting at 0, which has no color, and then going to white, and then yellow, and finally red. And red is where you're going to want to live, and that is going to be where you're going to be doing your big Giga Chad damage. So now that we understand the overall mission or goal behind playing the longsword, this is how I'm going to break down this video. First, we're just going to need to know how to actually build meter, okay? How to get your juice inside of your sword. Second, we need to know how to level up our gauge. Then I'm going to be showing you guys the optimal combos and what you want to do to actually get to red and how you can get to red as fast as possible. And then we're going to be talking about your optimal combo cycle for once you are in red, so that you could be doing the most DPS as possible and just shred through monsters. And then we're going to be looking at openers and how you want to open every fight so that you pretty much start with red instantly. And finally, I am going to be telling you guys the best monsters that you should be practicing on so that you can get into the rhythm of things. And after this video, you will have everything you need to go and make every single monster in this game your bitch. So starting from step 1, let's look at all of the moves that build your gauge. So you have 3 main basic attacks that you can do, and then 2 more that are a little bit more I don't want to say complicated, but different. The first is just your basic Y if you're on Xbox, or I believe triangle if you're on PlayStation, okay? As you see, when I do that, I am building gauge. The next attack is going to be your other basic attack, and that is going to be B on Xbox or circle on PlayStation. And again, as you see, that is building gauge. And you can loop both of these attacks pretty much infinitely. Keep in mind that your B attacks are going to come out a lot faster than your Y attacks, leaving you in an animation lock for a lot shorter of a time. So if you picked between one of those two, I would recommend your B. Your final just basic way to build gauge is going to be pressing Y and B at the same time. Okay? That's going to be your fade slash, and doing this fade slash builds exactly half of your gauge. So 2 of these will fill your gauge completely. There are 2 more ways to build gauge that are a little bit more, you could say, advanced, if you would like. The first way is by holding R2, okay? Your right trigger. If you hold that, you're going to go into this animation that looks like you're a human clock, and then you're going to be standing, and you can still move around. You're going to be slow. But as you see, as long as I have stamina, and as long as I'm holding R2, I am building that gauge, and you can fill it all the way up. Okay, and this move will come into effect a little bit later. We're going to be talking about that in the next section. The final way that you can build gauge is after an attack, you have the option to sheath your weapon. You sheath your weapon by pressing right trigger and A on Xbox or X on PlayStation. And after you do that, you have 2 options. You can either press Y or triangle. And as you see, not even touching my controller, if you land that attack, you are going to be passively filling your gauge. Again, remember that you can only sheath your weapon after you've done an attack. It doesn't matter what attack you do, but if I try to do my sheath right now, it doesn't, I just roll, okay? I look like a fucking idiot, so please don't be that guy. So quick summary, quick overview on the moves that build gauge. Y or triangle, B or circle, Y and B at the same time. Holding your right trigger down will passively. And finally, after you are able to sheath your weapon, pressing Y or triangle will also passively fill your gauge. Don't worry, in the step after the next one, I'm going to be showing you guys the optimal combos that you should be using to actually build your gauge and to level up your gauge. And I'll be talking about the best ones to use in just a second. But now for step number 2, we need to understand how to level up our gauge, okay? How to get it to white, to yellow, and then to red. There is one basic attack that levels up your gauge, and 3 kind of special mechanics, if you will say, that will also level up your gauge. As for the basic attack, if you look in the middle bar of the 3 combos that they give you, the middle one has you spamming your right trigger. However, if you don't have any of the juice inside of your sword, you're not gonna be able to do the combo. In order to do the combo, you need to have spirit inside of your spirit gauge. So let me fill this up real quick. Now that I have some spirit in my spirit gauge, as you see, at the end of this combo, oh, look at that. I am now at white. That is because specifically the spirit round slash, which is the last move of that combo, is going to be giving you that level up, okay? I need you guys to understand it is that move. It is not the combo that is giving you the level up. It is the last attack of the combo, which is called the spirit round slash. And the reason I'm stressing this is because there are ways to skip to the round slash so that you can just get that level up faster. You don't have to go through the whole combo. If you guys remember, one of the ways to level up or to give you juice, in your gauge is by holding right trigger. If you hold right trigger, not only is it giving you gauge, and once you are at this final position where the sword is over your shield, you are now at the point where you can now do that final attack to do the spirit round slash and level up your gauge, okay? So that is one way to skip directly to the round slash. Just hold right trigger. Another different way that you can level up your gauge is by focusing wounds. If you're in your focus mode, as you know, if you've played Monster Hunter Wilds at all, then you have a special attack, every weapon does, that you can do when a wound is open. If you do this, a special mechanic with the longsword is that it will give you a level up in your gauge. But the really cool thing about this is that not only does it give you a level up when you finish this attack, but it gives you a level up for every single wound that you do destroy. So, for example, if I make 2 wounds, I am right now at white, okay? And I am able to destroy both of them. I skip from white all the way to red. The next 2 special ways to level up your gauge are probably the most popular, the reason a lot of people want to play longsword, and also probably the best ways to level up your gauge, and that is by doing your 2 counter moves. To practice your counter moves, what I want you to do is I want you to come over to Luke. I just realized his name was fucking Luke. Hello. Click on the first option. I want to change the training settings, and then go to the training settings. When you go down to select mode, go down to smash mode, okay? There are 2 quote-unquote counters that you can do, both of which can level up your gauge. I'll explain why it's not necessarily guaranteed in just a second. So let's look at both of these. The first one is going to be foresight slash. That is going to be that back step. How you get into this is after you do any attack, if you press right trigger and B if you're on Xbox, circle if you're on PlayStation, then you will automatically do this backwards step. Now, if you time this correctly and dodge an attack, you will have this little flash of light, and then it... And then right after you successfully do that, if you want to call it a dodge, you have the ability to press right trigger again, putting you straight into that spirit round slash. Remember how I told you that combo when you press right trigger? If you time it correctly, you are able to go straight into the spirit round slash, which will level up your bar, which is why I said that it is not necessarily guaranteed, because if you do miss for some reason that spirit slash, it won't level up your bar. Next way to level up your gauge is if you sheath, you time it correctly, your next attack other than the Y, if you press right trigger, you're going to go into your spirit slash. So again, you're going to need to attack and then sheath and then land your attack. The spirit slash timing is going to be a lot tighter than your foresight slash. That back step, you have a lot more wiggle room when it comes to the timing of that. So if this hand is the monster and this hand is me, it's like attack, spirit slash, not as it's attacking Spirit Slash through the attack, because that will hit you out of the Spirit Slash. One last important thing I forgot to mention, there's actually another way to skip straight into that last hit of the right trigger combo. So wounds are one of my favorite things, and as a longsword player will be one of your favorite things in general when you're fighting a monster, because it can actually almost every time guarantee you at least 2 level ups. If you go ahead and do your finisher, that is going to level you up. But from there, you can also press right trigger more and keep spamming right trigger. And that actually puts you straight after the finisher, puts you straight into the 3rd step of that right trigger combo. So it skips the first right trigger and the second right trigger attack and puts you straight into the 3rd one. And then the follow-up will be the Spirit Round Slash. So it's just a lot faster. So whenever you have a wound, what you're going to want to do is, again, finish the wound and then spam right trigger. Okay, instant 2 levels. So now we know how to get spirit into our gauge. Now we know how to level up our gauge. Now let's actually talk about the best way and the fastest way to get into red gauge, okay? I need you guys to understand that the best way to get to red gauge is going to be your sheath counter or your backstep or your foresight slash, okay? Both of your parries, quote unquote parries, that is going to be hands down the best way to level up your gauge, but it is very difficult to get that consistently. Now, if you're trying to land either your sheath spirit slash or your backstep, either of your parries, here is the combo that you're gonna want to use, okay? All right, so by far the best combo if you're gonna try to be using any of those 2 parry attacks is going to just be spamming B. The reason for this is because your B attack chain is going to have the shortest animation lock window so that you can pretty much go into your parry whenever you want. So for example, I'm just gonna be spamming B, and when I think I'm about to get hit, bang. And then go back into spamming B, bang. Go back into spamming B, bang, I'm in red. This also works for your sheath. You have like an animation before you do your parry, so you're gonna have to sheath earlier than you do if you were just doing your backstep. That's why I suggest you using your backstep, because you can do this a lot more just on instinct or reaction time and less planning ahead. But for example, let's see if I can do this here. I'm just spamming B. I know it's about to swing, sheath, bang, okay? I go back in, okay? You press B. I sheath, but not including those, okay? If we're not looking at those, the combo that you want to do, what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna press B or circle, and then right after that, you're gonna wanna press Y and B at the same time to do that fading slash. So it's just gonna be like this, bang, bang. That gives you enough juice to get your entire RT combo off. Now, your best combo is going to be B, YB, RT, 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 hold RT, let go. And finally, another really good way to level up your gauge, we already talked about it, is by doing the finisher. That's gonna give you 1 level at least, unless there's multiple, and then just finishing off that combo. Now, that's just getting you into red. Once you're in red, that's when the party starts. So let's look at what your best combos are going to be and what you're going to want to do when you're actually in red. All right, so when you're in red, your Y attacks or your triangle attacks are going to look a lot different, and they're going to be doing crazy damage. This is going to be your new triangle or Y combo strand, okay? Just absolute insane damage. When you're in red, you also have this ability, as you guys have probably seen, that looks super sick, and in past Monster Hunters was the #1 thing that you were shooting for, and that's what you're spamming the entire time. And when it comes to burst damage, is going to be doing the most burst damage, but we'll talk about why you don't necessarily just want to be doing this attack all the time in just 1 second, okay? So once you're in red, if you press right trigger and Y if you're on Xbox, or right trigger and triangle if you're on PlayStation, you are going to be doing the Spirit Thrust, which is going to launch you up into the air and do this slam down. That in itself does a whole bunch of damage. But on top of that, if you are in red, then you have yet another follow-up. If you press right trigger after you land, you do even more damage. Look at my spirit gauge. I went from red to white. The first upward slash and then the downward slash, called the Helmbreaker, that downward slash consumes an entire level of gauge. And on top of that, your second attack, your spirit release slash, that whirlwind thing that did the second whoosh, you know, that consumes another level of gauge, which is why you don't necessarily just want to spam that right out of the gate. The major reason being is because this combo attack that I'm about to show you just does so much damage and consistent damage. So I showed you guys the triangle attack strand. However, you can interrupt that attack strand with a right trigger, which does a pretty decent amount of damage at any point. And the most damage that you're going to be getting out is going to simply just be spamming Y or triangle and then your right trigger. Y, then right trigger, 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 forever until you die. Let me show you why.
One hour later.
I just did 7,595 damage, and that was when most of those attacks were actually in blue, not white, versus the 1,300 damage that you do from the Helmbreaker and that spirit release slash thing. Does it not look as cool? Yes, it does not look as cool. Does it do a stupid amount of damage? Also, yes. Now, if we're getting even more technical about it, there actually are times where you are going to want to do the Helmbreaker. If you really want to maximize your damage to the most peak amount, this is what I would suggest. When you're doing that attack, you are going to be causing wounds. That attack strand with the Y right trigger, Y right trigger, okay? You're going to be causing wounds, and you're going to be causing a lot of them. So what I suggest is when you cause wounds, try to not hit the wounds once you actually cause the wounds. Try to make a wound in another part of the body. But once I'm not gonna actually wait until that thing finishes because it's gonna take a while for it to get all the way down. But once you're almost finished with your red gauge, so just keep spamming Y right trigger, causing as many wounds as you can. Then when you're about to run out of that red gauge, then you are going to be doing your Helmbreaker. And then you are going to be going to those wounds that you caused, putting you back into red gauge, then spamming your attacks again, hopefully causing an infinite loop of ridiculous damage that you can just, you know, you can just do just an absolute ridiculous amount of damage. I mean, it's just simple as that. So when you're in red, that is going to be the ultimate #1 combo cycle that you are going to go for. All right, so we understand the best ways to get to red, and we understand the best combos and the best ways to output damage once you're in red. Now, if you're fighting a monster, in the very beginning, there is an opener that you can do to almost guarantee you red gauge every single time. I'm about to show it to you guys on screen, and this is what it is. You're going to sneak up on the monster. Basically, as long as you're behind the monster, if your weapon is still sheathed, if you press B on Xbox or circle on PlayStation, you have this option to do a sneak attack on a monster. Once you do this sneak attack, you are instantly going to hold right trigger. That is going to put you in the animation to do the human clock move that ends in that slash that levels up your gauge. You're gonna hit the monster, leveling up your gauge to white. Once you do that, you're going to instantly go into a sheath. You're going to be waiting for the monster to roar, and at the moment of its roar, you are going to be doing your sheath counter that levels up your gauge. Now you're at yellow. From here, you are going to attack once or twice again, and then again go into another sheath. At this point, you are waiting for the first attack of the monster. Your goal is to counter once again this monster's first attack, and now you are in red and you can just go ham on his face. That is what this combo looks like altogether. right, so at this point, you have everything you need in order to slam monsters. Theoretically, you understand what to do, but you still need to practice. So of course, you can practice on dummies, on the dummy in the training range, but it's not going to be the same. So I'm going to give you guys 2 monsters that I think are the best for practicing the timing for your sheath, your openings, your counters, your step backs, everything, all of that. This is what I want you guys to do. If you go to Alma, I want you guys to practice on low ranked monsters first, okay? So you're gonna go to optional quests. And the reason I want you guys to practice on low ranked monsters first is because you're going to get hit by attacks. Practicing your counter attacks, you're going to get hit by attacks. You need to understand the timing of it. And when you don't quite understand the timing of it, you're going to get hit. And it's really annoying if you just keep dying and you get kicked out because you're trying to practice. So go to low ranked monsters so that if you do get hit, you're not getting dealt a crazy amount of damage. The number 1 easiest monster to practice on is going to be Uthduna. I'm going to be showing you guys some footage right now as I speak in the background. The reason is because Uthduna just has the slowest, most just overexpressed attacks. You know that they're coming from a mile away, and it's just really, really good to understand when in the sheath do you want to let go into that spirit slash, how much wiggle room do you have, all that. Okay, so practice on Uthduna first, and I suggest doing what I'm doing. Don't even attack the monster, just let the monster attack you and just do nothing but counter. That is how you're going to get that timing down. And then once you're ready to finish that training or whatever, that practice, then finish them off, pause, and then move on to the next easiest one, which in my opinion is going to be the Ray Dow. Again, just rinse and repeat. Just practice your counters, practice your sheath and your slash, practice your step back to the point where it feels like muscle memory, okay? And those are going to be the 2 easiest monsters in my opinion to practice on. It's good training for you guys. And if you did make it this far, think about leaving a like on the video, think about subscribing to the channel. It helps me a lot. Not only that, if you are watching this video, you probably also need a longsword build. So go ahead and click on this video right here. I give you not 1, not 2, but 3 builds that progress off of one another for longsword that will end you in the damage that I showcased in this video, which is absolute insane damage. And other than that, man, I'll see you guys in the next video. Turn this shit off.